Welcome back to the final session of Google Slides outside the presentation box. We're going to do just a kind of a quick overview, wrap-up review of a bunch of the stuff that we've done. Kind of point out a couple of main key features of slides, sort of, touch on a couple of the things that really make it outside the literal box as well as the figurative box. Then take questions, feedback, whatever, and then we'll also talk about how to submit your projects into the project document. So what I'll do is I will share and sort of just review the website, review the folder, the types of things we've had in the folder, and sort of a little bit of each. And like I said, jot your questions down, and then happy to take as many questions as are needed, review whatever. Basically, we have my blog, blogs.scarsdaleschools.org/HeathcoteTech. Under this STI menu right here, there's a Google menu, and then there's a Google Slides beyond the presentation, takes you to this. As the agenda has this project document link, which we'll go over in a minute, resources, all the recordings, things of that nature. One of the things we talked about was, you guys made a folder for this class, which is going to be the project, but it's also just good habit to be making folders and then creating things in the folder. So like I'm a little bit hyper organized. So like if I come back here, I have this STI folder, which is it's in my PD folder. And inside of that, I have it broken down by all my different topics, my different pitches and things like that. So like this is a Google class, so I made a Google folder. Inside of that, I have folders for either my individual courses, or in this case, since I do this course repeatedly, I have a Google Slides folder. So organization is important, even though that's not necessarily a Google Slides specific thing. It's just good habit to always be using sort of hyper organization, because it helps you just kind of keep things in place, makes it easy to find. So in this case, I'm in here, right? So we've made a whole bunch of different things during this course. We started out with a little bit of Google drawing, making a character. And the reason why we started out here was because, comic books, graphic novels are a fun way to use Google Slides. But Google drawing is a good, clean space for you guys, as well as then for your students, to kind of play around with shapes as a way to layer objects, layer shapes on top of one another to create different effects. Like we had done this, where this was one cloud on top of another cloud. These are the different clouds that have one, the big one has a border, but I wanted to make sort of bangs. So I put in a couple of other ones with transparent borders in order to make it look like the hair was coming over that forehead. This, in order to cut out this little line right here, there's actually another shape in there, same color as both of the shapes above it and below it, but with a transparent border making the line disappear. So just sort of little tricks like that, which then, after we then sort of highlighted, arrange, group, and we grouped this all together into one object, we copied it. And what we did was we pasted it into our Google Slides presentation. That was our comic book. Now, this one I had pasted in before I put the hair on. So if I were to just paste this in, I got my hair, I could take my corners, and I could drop it down. I can resize, change my shape. Now, when we actually got into Google Slides, since we had been comfortable with shapes and talking about layering shapes, that's where we started to talk about literally going outside the box. And we see that this shape is going outside this border of the actual Google slide. The reason why we did that is, you can look over here, is that once it goes outside the edge of the slide, it doesn't display. So that's how you can create like semicircles on a Google slide. So even though right now we're seeing this entire shape, we go to present, it actually gets cut off and it looks like a hill. So that's very literally about thinking outside the box. And the best way to do that is with the magnifying glass, and instead of being at fit, go to like 50%. So you can kind of play around with things outside the literal box. And that's also how you could take something like, a circle, and instead of putting it here to be the sun, where you would see the entire circle. You could, if you wanted to, kind of cut it up in the middle. And then what will happen with that is as it's off the slide, you're only seeing a little portion of it. So if I were to go into present mode, you're only seeing a portion of that circle. So that's sort of that notion of thinking outside of the presentation box. We also talked about using things like those red lines to line up and center objects either on the slide or each other. Those little brackets, those blue brackets, indicating that all those objects are equidistant from each other. So using those things that you see on the slide as a way to balance your slide, lay out your slide, set it up, see how it goes. So that was the base of the comic book. Then we also talked about things like animations and being able to make the cloud go. Now the animations could work for anything because everything is in an object, right? Text is inside of a box. The shapes are objects. All these things are inside those little blue boxes. So you can insert an animation on this and you can make it fade in. And then what that does is that makes the cloud, when you click, the cloud fades in. You could even, if I wanted to, on this particular one, I could make this, I can add the animation. And if I wanted to, instead of fade in, I can make it fly in from the left, after previous. So now if I were to preview this, I click for that first animation, cloud comes in, then the second one comes flying in. So it's a way to kind of give some motion. And now you can do this to text boxes. So you can do this like we were talking about more last week with bullet points, and that works. So that was sort of the comic book and layering on these different objects and doing all these different animations. We also talked about the graphic novel, which is a little bit different in terms of actually turning the page and putting in your grids or your panels. The way we did that was file, page setup, and instead of being standard or widescreen, we went to custom and we did 8.5 by 11. So obviously you could do 11 by 8.5, you could do 8.5 by 14, like you could do any standard paper size if you wanted to. And then all I did was I put in shapes. Again, shapes are so important because shapes, everything comes in those little blue boxes. So it's so important to understand that in slides, you're really not working with a text or you're not working with an image, you're working with these objects, these sort of boxes, these blue boxes that may contain an image, may contain text, may contain a shape, but then they can be malleable and manipulatable independently. And so what we did was, I just put a picture in here. I added another text, another shape as my sort of my narration box. The speech bubbles are in the call outs down here. Those are your sort of couple of speech bubbles and a thought bubble. Just the way you can add and mix and match. And what we also did with this picture is, if you guys remember, this picture is actually a lot bigger. So if I double click on it, you can see that what I did was I cropped it or masked it, meaning I hid part of the picture. And I use these black lines to not change the size or the shape of the picture. Like we don't want to squish it or stretch it with the middle buttons, but if I double click on it, I get this mask ability where I can tweak it to fit my shape. And then I could actually make, a more standard graphic novel looking piece of paper. I could even layer pictures and put a whole bunch of pictures together on top of each other if there isn't the perfect picture, that I want. That was a graphic novel. We then also talked about the ignites and how the ignites are 15 seconds, auto-timed, and the idea behind the ignite is simple and clean. So that when we're practicing this, we're not worrying right now about images because we have a 1-word or 1 image or 6-word rule, because basically what we want to have happen is when we go to present, we come down here to those 3 dots and we autoplay every 15 seconds. And the idea behind this is that when we hit play, we're giving a scripted, well-rehearsed, well-timed and thought out presentation where the audience is really listening and dialed into what we're saying, and the visuals on the screen are simple. And that as this slide turns and as you build this, you focus not on the images, you focus not on the content on the slide. That's why there's just a number there. What you're really focusing on is the story, the narrative that you're trying to convey, the message you're trying to convey to your audience. those images that you will eventually put in behind you just go to support and reinforce that narrative. And that's why Ignites are more simple and clean, but it's about using the slideshow as a way to really not have information on it, but have a visual to support your story, your literal and figurative voice. And then we also went into standard presentation, where we were talking about sort of a more standard setup, where we have like a table of contents, where we have links to chapters, where we have bullet points. You know, we talked about how when you actually, this is all in one box. So this is all in one object. You can create your bullet points right here. Sub bullets, or you just press the tab key. A sub bullet is related to the bullet above it, but it clarifies something about it. This is, so one image, 6 words is about creating with purpose. How do we create with purpose? We think about these 2 ideas, could versus should, want versus need. That's why those are then another set of sub bullets. These are directly related to the thing above it, which are all related to the main bullet. And that's why we have that. We could also talk about the animations, where if we have animations with this, we have this fade in. Now by paragraph means that if I like right now click play, nothing is there. If I click, everything comes in together. But if I want it to be by paragraph, what that's going to do is that's going to mean that everything in that box is only going to come in by paragraph. Now, the reason why it's automatic is because it says after previous. If you had switched that to say on click, it obviously would go in, it would wait for you to trigger it. So that becomes a personal choice about purpose. What is the, how are you delivering this speech? How are you doing this? One thing we did talk about is that if you're going to give something to somebody that you want them to drive themselves later, I recommend no animations, because that user is not necessarily going to know what is triggered next, or when to click and when not to click. It'll be too confusing. You're giving a presentation and you want to be cautious about when things show up, use triggers. If you're creating, let's say, a tutorial that you're going to have your students use, I would stay away from the animations, just because you don't want them to be confused about why is the page blank? What's happening? Nothing's working, because they're not going to know why things are animated or where things are animated. We also talked about where these like table of content sort of breadcrumbs, and how you can make one. And when you go to the link, you just slides in this presentation, you choose a slide, and then you could click and copy this and go to every page if you wanted to. When you paste, it'll paste at the same spot. But we also talked about these other breadcrumbs up here, like this book, which I can't click on. This I pasted, but this I didn't. And the difference was that these that I can click on was something that I just copied and I pasted. The ones that I can't click on, but are still links, that's where we went to the theme builder. And what we did was we put these in here, meaning that we added it to the actual like foundation of the slide. So we added the button, the object with what it links to. So that way, anytime I make one of these slides, it's going to automatically make that book, and it's going to add that by default. And the slide theme, or the theme builder, is great because if you know that you're always going to have something in a place no matter what, you can do it here, and then it's automatically created for you because it's part of the actual foundation of the slide. And then we also just talked about, you put in pictures, not necessarily using big arrows to point things out, but more using your shapes again as captions, because you could actually save real estate by doing that, where you can actually have fewer items in sort of the white space. You leverage the fact that there's no need to kind of put say like this is a planner with an arrow. You can literally just put the description in a small shape right on the image, like a caption box, and then it makes it a little bit cleaner, makes it a little bit neater, a little bit easier to see. Also talking about sort of blending that idea of sort of traditional presentation with like more text with sort of an Ignite concept, where you might have one image with a simple text box where this could be almost part of an Ignite talk, but this could also stand alone, where somebody who's not hearing you talk could actually know that in October, you're going to be reading Harry Potter and this is the cover of the book. So still using that concept of simple and clean, you know, as few words as possible to get the message across makes it more impactful, because then this is going to be easy for somebody to understand and remember, sort of regardless of grade level and age. And then these were just examples of how every time I added the slide, my little breadcrumbs were there because I did them on the theme builder. And that sort of catches us up to today. Like those are all sorts of things that you guys have been working on in that folder. Any questions, comments, queries about any of that stuff after that quick review?
This isn't a question about that, but you know, I've wondered, is there a way when you're putting a slideshow together to like I've tried to underline a word and it's not like I can do it once I've typed the text in. I've made a line and I've tried real hard to figure it out. But you know, if like when I'm working with kids and I want them to zoom in on one word,
yeah,
I haven't been able to do it. Is there an easy way to like draw on a document?
Oh, you mean while you're presenting to physically underline it?
No, even if I do it ahead of time, like I want you to, this is the word we're going to zoom in on. And I've had a real hard time making a line that goes under it correctly. It's not like, so it's tricky to place it. I just wondered if there was an easier way that even when I'm creating the document and typing in the text that I can like draw on it and then come back or circle a word or
kind of. So like, this is sort of that, like, you think about like how you're using your purpose, right? So if, let's say I wanted questions to be underlined, just highlight it and press the U, right? Now that's going to be underlined all the time. And it's not going to, like when you go to present, it's underlined. Even
what if it's not text? What if I've taken, like I copied a picture, a page from a kid's book. So it's actually in the book they're reading and I want to highlight on that. It's not my typing.
Right. So let's use this as an example, right? So you want to highlight on here. You can't, while you're presenting, you can't draw. Like when you're in here, when you're in present mode, you can't annotate. Even if you're on a smartboard, the smartboard won't let you annotate while you're in present mode. This would be an example where you would use those animations. Like if you were just going to use this to show the kids something, what you could do is you could just grab a line, and let's say this is the line. I want to underline this. So I just drop a line right there.
So you want to circle the pen on that illustration.
So let me just do this real quick. So I'll just make this a little bit thicker. If I wanted to circle the pen on the illustration, I would do the same thing. I would grab the pen, or the shape rather, the circle. Then what I would do is for the fill color, I would do transparent. And then what I might do for the line, I might thicken up the line just a little bit, and I might change the color of the line, let's say to red. Now, this is going to show up just like this. Now I have an animation, so that's why it was there before I clicked. And that's why like the animations can be tricky. But what you can do is if you're building this and you know you're not going to like send this document home with the kids, this is just for you. This is where what I would say you do is on this picture, you don't have an animation. You have the fewest amount of animations possible because you animate with purpose. So you animate the important stuff, meaning you'll take this and you'll add an animation and you'll want this to like, let's say fade in on click. And then we're going to click this one and we'll add an animation and we'll fade in on click. So then what will happen is you're giving the lesson with the kids and you're like, all right, cool. Like, you know, here's a checklist, here's a planner. Now it's like, now listen, I want you guys to focus on the pen. And then you click and then your thing comes up and say, what we do is we pick up the pen and we underline the line of text, you know, and then that's how you would sort of affect that result of like a live sort of annotation. You're not really doing it. You're kind of prepping it ahead of time. That's one of those situations though, where I would not then give that presentation to kids as a reference point with those animations, because then they'd be like, oh wait, where's the pen? I don't know where the pen is. Wait, where's the circle? You know, it might throw them off because they don't know how it was constructed. They just know how they saw it. Now you could, if you made it like that, presented it to them, and then wanted to share with them, I would just go in and remove those animations so that the child would see it with like the book, the pen, and the underline. It would just be like static for them. You would have to decide if that's appropriate from an intellectual content standpoint. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's just a matter, it's like, it's about how you're building it and why you're building it. You know, and sometimes, now the flip side about like the drawing on stuff with the smartboard, if you're presenting to kids with a smartboard and you don't go into present mode, you can then use the smartboard pens to annotate. You know, so if you just were giving this to the kids, if you just were like working with the kids and it looked like this, you don't go into present mode, you just sort of go through the slide deck like this, you could pick up a smartboard pen and draw and annotate and underline and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, as long as you're not in present mode.
Wow, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, as long as you're not in present mode, you can draw. It's just, yeah, it's just that when you go in present mode, you can't.
Okay, and how would I do that? Just like literally take my smart, because I present on my
Yeah,
Promethean.
just pick up the pen, and it's like the what do they call it? They call it the desktop annotation tools or whatever it is. Or it depends on which version you have. It's like that little floating text, like circle option button. But yeah, you can draw right on the desktop essentially, and that's what you would do. It just wouldn't be in present mode.
Great.
And then again, like I said, you just have to sort of think about purpose, and are you using this just to demonstrate with the kids, which is totally fine, and you build it and use it how you want, or are you using it for that plus giving it to the kids as a reference point, and then you may have to build a little bit of extra into it for when you give it to your students as a reference point, so that way they can understand it and see everything without you not having to go, oh wait, I gotta click before the thing gets circled, or I gotta click before, you know, make it simple where everything on the slide is just there. So every time they click, it just advances them to the next slide. Cool. What else? Any other questions? Because I'll show you some other stuff we talked about. So one thing we talked about, going back to the Ignite, is that, you know, an Ignite is a very easy slideshow because you're just doing the 6 words or 1 image, right? You're keeping it super clean. So what we do for that is we actually use a document to really prepare it. So when we use with students, we generally do like 7 slides. So this is what we give to the kids. And it's sort of a reminder that these are your 7 slides. They're all 15 seconds, but the reason why we write intro 15 seconds is a reminder that even though it's their title slide, and even though they're just saying, you know, hi, my name is Billy and this is my presentation, that they still have to account for those 15 seconds. And they still have to know that that's 15 seconds. Same with the conclusion, is they can't just get to this slide and say, thanks for watching my show. No, like they need to summarize, they need to wrap up, they need to have information in there. And the reason why we put the points in here like this is to kind of get them to understand that when you're building this presentation, your introduction and your conclusion don't have new information. You're not trying to give new information in the first one or give new information in the last one. The intro is you're literally introducing your topic. Here's what we're going to talk about. Here's what we're going to cover. Here's what you're going to learn. Let's go. Then you have, and even through those, it doesn't have to be a new point on each slide. You know, you may have 2 points, you know, slides 2 and 3 may cover the same point. You just spend 30 seconds covering it. And then the idea with the conclusion is that the same idea is you're not giving new information. When you get down to here, it's like, hey, so now we know, and now here's what you learned, and now you know what I know, and it's just a wrap up of it. Because these are those sort of bookends where you're gaining your audience's attention, and then people are understanding that it's over and they're starting to clap or shift or whatever. So it's about understanding the format and sort of the progression of a presentation, gaining the audience's attention, letting them know what they're going to know, telling them, teaching them, explaining, and then doing a quick wrap up. And then we give them this section for the narrative where it's like, hey, listen, put down some words, put down some sentences, some paragraphs, get your structure in place. What are you going to cover first? What are you going to cover next? What are you then going to cover? Let them think about it kind of just in narrative form before they then start actually breaking it out into these different blocks where they're kind of starting to then visualize, all right, I know how I want to kick it off and I know I have to intro it. So how am I actually going to say that? And the reason this is important is that once they have this in here, that's where they start actually verbalizing that and speaking that out loud and timing themselves. So then they can see, all right, is this enough? Is it roughly 15 seconds? It might be 13, might be 16, but okay, like at least I'm in the range. Or is it 4 seconds? Uh-oh, I got to add more. I got to beef it up. Also, it's important too, because when they actually start reading this as a script, even if they don't say it word for word when they present, which no one expects them to, it's a guide to help them sort of make it concrete in their head, because oftentimes we in general as people don't realize how the written word and how we read in our heads is so much different than how we speak, and how some combinations of words are really easy to process as we're reading to ourselves, but are much harder to speak clearly out loud. And this gives the kids an opportunity to really think about how concise and specific and efficient their writing is, because they need to be concise and efficient with their words, and they need to be words that they can actually get out and not stumble over. So this helps them with that editing and revising process, sort of taking that big bulky narrative and then stripping it down to just the most key words that they can most eloquently say. And then we always tell them, and then the pictures are just ideas, right? They'll put the pictures in way last, but then they use this before they even get to that presentation to give them the idea that, like, all right, here's what I'm going to say. I've got my timings down. I'm rehearsing it. But then, like we always say with the Ignites, they're not going to, no one's checking. No one's checking to see that the script you got word for word. That's not the point of it. The point is to really understand and internalize and own that narrative and know your structure and know your pacing and be concise and efficient with your words, because that's going to gain the audience's attention, and that's really going to make the audience listen and learn. So that's the, it's about the Ignite script. It's not just about making a slideshow and slapping stuff up on there. There's sort of pre-planning work that goes into it to make that live presentation a much better experience for everyone involved. Anything about that? Any questions, comments, queries? All right, one other thing we talked about and I showed you guys was something I used for capstone, but very much applies to this, which was our guidelines document. And our guidelines document is something we give out to the kids in terms of the project creation. Things to think about, things to remember as you're doing this, right? Thinking about simplicity, thinking about being clean and concise. And it talks not just about the rule, but why, right? Why do we have this rule? It allows audiences to focus on the image and listen to you and really hear you, things like that, explaining to them the purpose of this stuff. Only 6 words, 100% of the attention to the words and your talk. Essentially the concept that you're already splitting your audience's attention when you give a presentation. You're splitting their attention because they're listening to you. They're looking at the screen. So you're already splitting their attention in half. Are you splitting it again by making them read? Are you splitting it again by having a lot of pictures and a lot of words, and then they're having to look and read and do all these things in all these different places, and then in which case you're dividing their attention? You don't want to do that. You want to bring them in and focus them as opposed to make it too distracting. Also consistency, regardless of whether it's an Ignite or a standard presentation or a graphic novel, doesn't matter. Being consistent is key. Even if it's in that graphic novel, you want your those sort of narration boxes to always look the same, same color, same relative size, same placement, same font size, same font style. Same thing with those speech bubbles, thought bubbles, they should have the same font, same style, same color, all of that. So then that way there's consistency. So your reader, your audience will then very quickly understand what they're looking at, because they'll, if every time you go to a new page or a new slide, your fonts change, your sizes change, your colors change, they're always going to be trying to figure out why. Like, why is this text now bigger than the last page's text? Why does this page have a purple background and that page has a green background? You don't want to distract them and make them question things. If all of your speech bubbles are yellow, then every time they see something yellow, they go, oh, that's a speech bubble. That's a character talking. If all of your narration boxes are white, they're going to automatically, oh, there's a text in a white box. That's narration. Thought bubbles are always red. They see red and yellow on a slide, on a page, they're going to know that, oh, one character's thinking, one character's talking. And that's why you want to be consistent. So that way your audience ends up understanding how to navigate your book, presentation, whatever it is, because you're being consistent. And same thing like pictures, if it's like an Ignite where you have just images, either do the whole slide or always just put them in the middle, but be consistent so your audience is once again understanding page to page, slide to slide, what they're seeing, and they're not trying to figure out or interpret every slide as an individual, every page as an individual. You want them to kind of get into a groove where they know what to expect. Same thing with animations, be thoughtful about it and stuff like that. Cool. Any questions about consistency, expectations, things of those natures?
What's the Ken Burns effect?
So the Ken Burns effect is named after Ken Burns, who's a famous documentary filmmaker. He pioneered the motion on images. So whenever you watch a documentary now, everyone does it. Basically, it's a still photo, but the camera's moving across it, or the camera's zooming in on a portion of it. So that was a thing that Ken Burns it's a stylistic thing he kind of created and made famous. In iMovie, it's literally called the Ken Burns effect, where you can select the starting point on an image and an end point, and it'll move and animate into it. And the point of that, of putting that into that consistency document, is saying, if you're going to do something like animations, if you want a lot of animations in something, is Google Slides the right platform for you? And maybe it's not. If a student says, oh, I have all these pictures and I want like the camera to zoom in on the pictures and I just want to talk over the pictures, it's like, okay, Google Slides can't do that. Google Slides, they either come in or they go out. That's it. If you want to have a lot of interior motion, maybe Google Slides is not the platform you want to use. Maybe you want to make a movie so that you could do that with a voiceover. So part of that is understanding the limitations of each of these programs, as well as sort of the purpose of the programs, and then making informed decisions. So if you had a bunch of still images and you wanted to kind of have the camera move across the still images while you talked, I would say make an iMovie, because you can set that up in iMovie, narrate over it, and then boom, you're done. And then it's not a presentation, that's a movie that gives that different effect. I can show you real quick what the Ken Burns effect is if you want in iMovie, because I have a iMovie open. So this is iMovie. This is a slide. This is just from one of my other STI classes. And if you look at it, you'll notice that it has that kind of zoom in. So in iMovie, if you double click on it, see, if you do fit is just a standard image, nothing's going to move. But Ken Burns, it has this start, this is big box, and end. Now, if I wanted to, I could make this, be smaller. And then what'll happen is it basically just does that. And the speed is based on how long the image is up there for. So it has to move, it has to make this move from this big one to this little one in either 4 seconds, 8 seconds, like however long you make it is going to either speed up or slow down that effect. And you can do it, any which way you wanted to. pointing it out to whatever you want. And that was the sort of the thing that Ken Burns pioneered, and the effect that he kind of is known for, which is why, and I'm sure he gets money from Apple for calling it the Ken Burns effect. In other software, like in WeVideo can do it. They don't call it the Ken Burns effect. They call it animation. And then what you do is you literally you click on the picture, it's a start. And let's say start is at 1, like real size. Then what you could do is you go to the end and you kind of scale in, and you scale the image up to be like 1.5, 2, something like that, meaning that you're zooming in on a portion. And you could move the end box around, so you can move the image around to figure out the flow or the direction. That's what that is. So that's the thing, is if you want to have a lot of animations going across pictures while you're talking, well, maybe that's not a Google slideshow, that's a movie. And again, it goes back to kind of creating with purpose and understanding what something like Google Slides can do, what it's really good at, and what you use it for. One of the great things about slides, especially from a sort of student use standpoint, is that it's Google. So it's always updatable. So like, I have the slideshow that I put into the blog post, this one over here. So I have this one in here with all of these, examples and things like that. Now I can go and I can update this slideshow. I don't have to re-embed this on the blog. I don't have to reshare it. I don't have to do anything. It automatically updates. Something like a movie, it's done. If you need to make a change, you need to make a change to the whole movie, reshare, re-up, like it's a process. So that's why, things like a Google slideshow is helpful, because I can see something on here that needs fixing. I can then just go back to my drive, make those fixes, and it automatically shows on the website. And that's also good for your students. If you're creating a slideshow that you want to then use for your kids as a tutorial, you stick it on your teacher page, your Google site, whatever, you want them to be able to use it, makes it easy. Because if a kid says, hey, I don't understand this, and you look at the slide, you're like, oh yeah, I can explain it better. All you have to do is just edit the text on the slide, and that's it. And it automatically does it. It's up there. Oh, we can talk about that a little bit. Does everyone know how to publish a slideshow like in present mode and add it to like a Google site or a Schoolwires page? We'll do that real quick. So a couple little tricks. Let's say you wanted to, let's say I had this presentation, and maybe it's a template, and I want to give it to the kids. Few ways you could do this. Now, if I just click share, and if I just share with all my kids, they're all going to have the one file. I don't want that. I don't want them to be messing with my original. Now, in Scarsdale, grades 2 through 5, we have something called Hapara, and Hapara allows us to push out to all of our students a copy of a file. So Hapara is really easy to use, because you would go into Hapara, do what's called Smart Share, and push it out. Let's say you don't have something like Hapara, or maybe you want to use this with colleagues and it's difficult. What you could do is you change that, your share settings to anyone in the domain, right? Scarsdale, Edgemont, whatever it may be. You copy this link. But when you go to paste this link, if you look at the end, it has edit $USP = sharing. If you delete that and write the word copy, what'll happen is anyone who gets this link will be forced to make a copy of it in their own drive. So that's how you can give out this file without actually giving out yours. Like if you wanted them to make edits to it, if you wanted them to build upon it. Similarly, you can do present. And then this link will automatically, if you give it to somebody, will show up in present mode. And then they can drive through this themselves by clicking on it, and then they don't see your slide sorter on the side. They don't see the file edit view. They don't see your menu bars and things like that. So you can mess around with those links. Now on a Google site, Google sites are super easy because and I know like at Edgemont, they use Google sites. So on a Google site, we use my Heathcote Gateway as a quick example. If you use a Google site, it's crazy simple. You don't even have to worry about any of that. Let me go to I have a development page that I use for this. So on a Google site, let's say I wanted to add something. I just go to insert and I can either go to drive, or if I scroll down, I go to slides. And I click on slides, it'll show me my recent slides that I've been using, which is helpful because if you're working on a slideshow and then you want to put it on your Google site, it's like, oh, there it is right there. Click it, insert, that's it. It's done. It's already in present mode and it's visible. All I then have to do is click publish. And then that would then publish that change. And then my students would be able to see that slideshow in present mode and click through it.
I'm confused by what you just did and how that was different from doing this, cutting the edit and putting the /present in. How is that different? I mean, were you going on the site the Heathcote site, or?
It affects the same result. The difference is, let's say you don't use Google Sites and somebody says, send me a link to your presentation. And you want to send them the link, but you don't want to have them a viewer on it where they see the slide sorter.
Right.
That's where you might just copy that link and just take off the edit and put the word present on it and then send them that link. So when that person.
When you get into Google, I followed you doing that, but then you said, or you can do this if you're on a Google site like Edgemont is, and we do use Google. And
so if you wanted to publish it to your website, instead of just having a link to it, like if you wanted to actually embed it in the website.
Google Classroom.
Google Classroom is different. That's Google Classroom. Google Classroom, you would just attach it as an assignment. Or in Google Classroom, that might be where you put the link with the word present at the end if you want the kids to watch it before they do something.
Yeah, because I don't give them assignments in Classroom, but I do put links up there for them.
Right. So that would be where you would put that link with the word present at the end of it.
Okay, great.
If you have a class website where you publish links, and if you have like a class web page, like for instance, I'll show you the like this Heathcote Gateway is the one that I use for the school. So a practical example of why I do this is, so I have all these tech instructions, right? So let's go to like second grade. So on this second grade page, this is my website, they can go to it, they see text, they see links, but I can also embed the tutorial. So this is literally what a student or a parent or a teacher would see. They say, oh, how do I get to Brain Pop? Well, here's a link, here's some directions, but here's actually a tutorial, a Google slide tutorial that they can actually go through and navigate through if they wanted to. If they wanted to make it bigger, they just click this button to enlarge it. But that's how in Google Sites, you could actually embed the slideshow next to an image. Like this right here is an image. This is an image.
That is way beyond my ability. I'm like, no, that's cool. I can't see myself doing it. That looked hard.
It's actually one of the nice things about Google Sites is it's super crazy simple. It's literally just
for you.
No, and I'll show you. We'll do the quick dime tour of that. Is literally like if you go to Google Sites, like I said, I know a lot of Edgemont teachers use it as like their home pages. Like this is what you'd be looking at, right? Like this is the website and this is the editor of it. Literally.
So this is different than Google Classroom. You're saying if I have a Google, I don't know. We might have a Google web page that I don't know about.
Well, I think a lot of Edgemont
I don't
teachers,
know. I know I Google Classroom.
Yeah, so I think a lot of Edgemont teachers build class web pages so different than Google Classroom. Google Classroom is just like an assignment dissemination place, right? And that's just like, it's literally like, and it's a chronological stream of stuff. That's Google Classroom, right? Like the newest thing goes at the top. It also gets kind of clunky because if
Yep.
people start commenting, whatever. A website is a static place that people can go to that have, a welcome letter, a resources links, a contact me page, whatever. That might be like the public facing thing of your classroom, right? That might be what parents see, what, kids
Right.
see.
We might have that.
Well, I know you do because I know I've done STIs with other classroom teachers at Edgemont, and they have for their classroom a website that's like the public facing portion of their
Yeah.
classroom. And I'll actually show you one of the things so like last year, what we did that too. And we actually had grade level sites. So like, for instance, like this was the kindergarten site at Heathcote. So the kindergarten team built a Google site, which is a website, kind of a welcome letter, meet your teachers, supply list, but then they had a curriculum page. So if like somebody wanted to go and see the reading curriculum, they would click on the reading curriculum and they could understand the units. Each teacher had their own separate page for a little personalization, like this is Miss Grossbach, here's what I look like without a mask, here's what I look like in a mask. Nothing big, but a Google site allows them just to like have more content in a more static way, resources, different buttons for logging into different apps.
We have that, but we've never been taught how to do it. It's like
Right.
I have one. I have it if you go to our site, but I don't know what to do on it. They never really showed us. So
And right, which is unfortunate, but it's crazy easy. It's literally like, so this is one of my pages. There's an insert button on the right. It's what do you want to insert? Like if you want to insert text, you insert a text box and it puts it there and say like, this is text. If you wanted to make it smaller, you just, drag it over here. If you felt like putting something next to it, you can, like, this is a slideshow. I went to insert, I went to slides, I put it in. I can drag this down here and now it's next to my text box. I can click this and I drag that over there. I can
you do this all under publish on the right side of this.
Yeah. So you insert stuff. Insert is just adding stuff.
It's sort of like Google Slides, but the opposite. Instead of working off the left, you have a menu on the right, and that's for the website.
Well, yeah, because it's a different building platform. You're talking about you're making pages. You can use the plus button to make new pages, and then when you make a new page, what do you want to insert on the page? And then when you're ready, you publish it. You can add collaborators if you wanted to. So like, people can see it. Miss Sorensen, the librarian, is an editor, so she can make changes to certain pages, like our capstone page. So if you're a co-teaching situation, so like this kindergarten one, it's shared with the kindergarten teachers. So that way they can build it. We just hired a new one. We haven't gotten her picture yet, but we have on the front page because we just hired her. But so she just built her section of that page. And then it's just really easy to embed stuff like a Google slideshow. So that way you can have, you can use that slideshow for more than just a slideshow. It's more than just
Can I share with you what I see? Because I thought we had it, but now I can't access it. And if other teachers have it, I'm thinking I should. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it. Now, also, I will say I think the last time I had Edgemont teachers in an STI class was pre-COVID. So I don't know if Edgemont changed rules or access, but yeah, that is share.
I was told last year, which was overwhelming because we had to do so much technology, including Google Classroom for the first time in second grade, that we had to have a web page. But I didn't do it. I just didn't have time to, and nobody yelled at me. So, I sort of, but I do remember having it before that, but now I'm looking at it. Let me see if I can show it to you. Let me see. How do I share here?
Should be a green button. Yeah, share the screen real quick.
Let me see if I can.
And then after this, I'll show you guys how to actually embed these things in other places aside from Google Sites. So if you had a School Wires page or something like that about Embed Code.
Okay, do you see the Greenville School page? All right, and here it goes, grades and department. And then I go to second grade. And
That's a
like
Google site.
yeah, but now I don't see where there's a link here to a website.
No,
And
this
it
is
says website.
so this is a Google site, and the way you know it is up at the top in the address bar. It says sites.google.com,
Right.
and in the
I
bottom
can't
in the,
access this, right? If somebody else owns it, in other
no,
words.
in the bottom right, there's a pencil.
Yeah.
So click on the pencil, and you are an editor, so you can now make changes. So if you wanted to,
Yeah.
you could go to that pages button on the right,
Yeah.
and if you felt like it, you could click the plus button, and you could make a new
The
page
plus button
on the bottom.
on my computer.
On the bottom,
I don't see. Oh, I see.
and then
Okay.
call it Miss Lloyd.
Maybe
Ms.
I'll do
L or 2L or whatever whatever you
Yeah.
want. And say done.
Miss Lloyd's class page. Yes.
I wouldn't even go, just do Miss Lloyd. I mean, that's one of those like simplistic thing. Like we know it's your class and we know it's your page because it's literally
Okay,
a link.
good.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So now you see it on the top in the navigation.
Yeah.
So it's there. So now, and actually what you want to do is go put your mouse over it and see the 3 dots to the right. Go up to Miss on the right-hand side, go to Miss Lloyd.
Oh, when you say
The Zoom
Okay,
people are
yeah,
probably in
here.
the way. Nope. Nope.
which
The
yeah.
right-hand side where it says home and then Miss Lloyd. Yep, right
Yep.
there. Click those 3 dots and click properties. Get rid of that apostrophe after Lloyd. Just do Miss Lloyd and then done. And then in the center where you still have the apostrophe under Miss Lloyd, just click in there and just delete. There you go. And then now on the right-hand side, you go to insert up at the top.
Under publish
Nope.
here.
Nope.
Okay.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, physically under published, but yeah, there you go. So now you can insert a text box and do hello stuff. You could scroll down, you could insert slides, then put it right on your web page. And when you're
And now
done,
this is connected to when they go to the 2nd grade, they can just go to the next page and it'll say Miss Lloyd. Is that right?
yeah, up at the top, like once you publish it, they would go to that 2nd grade page, and then at the top of it, it would say next to home, it says Miss Lloyd. They can click on Miss Lloyd and they'll get to your page where you could put in those Google slideshows or stuff like that.
Right.
And then you can make additional pages. So just like you make folders, right? You make a
Yeah.
folder, then you make folders in folders. You go to pages, you can make another new page underneath your name. And it'll get like bumped in, and then you can make sub pages.
Okay.
So if
All
you
right,
wanted
I'm gonna
to,
try it. I'll play
yeah.
with it.
And what I'll do is I'll stop that real quick and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Like over here, like when I look at pages, you'll notice that on the right-hand side, see how it says tech instructions and then
Yep.
kindergarten is bumped in. It's a sub, just like the sub bullets on a slideshow. So you just have these things, and all you have to do to make those, like if I wanted this dev page to be under podcasts,
Mhm.
like right now it's its own page, I can just click and drag, and I drag it on top of it.
Ah,
It will then put it now underneath podcasts, like it's related to that, just like a bullet point. If I don't want it there, I just drag it out where I get a line, and then it'll pop it out, and now it's its own page. The last thing I'll say to this is that there's that line right there, because what I've done is I went to the 3 dots and I said hide in navigation,
okay.
meaning it's a hidden page. Like they can't find it anywhere up here. It's hidden.
Yeah.
I use it for like these purposes to show you how you can easily drag in a Google slideshow, and how you can easily pick up a slideshow and move it around. You can
Okay.
resize a slideshow, like whatever, there's plenty of options for that. Now, while we're in here, for anyone who does like school wires, let's say, let me jump back over here, this one. So if you ever see something that's asking you for embed code, then you need to embed this with code, like in something like school wires. What you do is you go to File, Publish to the Web. When you publish to the web, you can click Embed, and you can choose how big or small you want it. This is if they hit play. Now that's an important distinction, because what that means is this is in present mode. This doesn't have an auto play. Notice there's no play button right here. right? Because I just did present. If you're publishing it to the web, it gives you an autoplay option. That only works if they actually hit the play button. They can still just click individually. So let's say I put this at 15 seconds and I say publish. I say, okay. This code right here that starts with this sort of bracket iframe and then ends in iframe, that's what you would use if you were using something like school wires and you needed to, and they asked for embed code. This would be the code you would take. You could also get this link and it publishes it the same. It does an embed link. It gives you embed code and it gives you an embed link, but notice the link is different time. Now, the difference is if I copy this and I get a new tab and I paste this in, this has, like, if I click on it, I could still come up here, but if I navigate through, it's going to do that autoplay every 3 seconds, and that we don't want that. But essentially it's the same thing. So that's why, it's sort of the difference between, if you just put the word present at the end, you're going to affect the same results with no autoplay, but you would do the publish to the web really if you wanted the embed code, because if something like school wires wants embed code, you would do the embed code and that's what you would put in. And then that would give you the published view. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I think I'll just stick with linking.
Yeah, the link, or for you, if you're going to start using that Google site, literally on the right-hand side where it says insert, just scroll down till it says slides. You'll find yours, you click it, insert it, it'll plop it there, and then you can just resize it, drag it around. And then when you're ready, you just click that publish button and it'll publish it. And then that way somebody can go to that second grade page, click on your sub page inside of second grade, and then see your content and see those tutorials and see those resources that you've created.
So now that I've started that, I don't have to finish it now, right? Until I hit publish, it won't be visible. Is that correct?
Correct.
But
Yep.
it'll stay there as a work in progress for me, or do I have to?
It will. Now, what I would recommend doing is, the way Google Sites works is, if somebody else made a change to like the second grade page, like let's say there was a new teacher or a phone number change and they clicked publish, your content gets published as well.
Oh, okay.
The publish button publishes everything for that site. It doesn't pick and choose like what to publish. So since you made that page, I would at least say do the insert text and do welcome to Ms. Lloyd's second grade page. Like this page is under construction. Check back for resources and whatever. Publish it. That way, if somebody does go to it, they at least see that you're sort of in progress on it. Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, and like the embed code is, that's something that's used less and less now, especially as people are using things like school wires less and less. But that's, if you need the embed code, it's file, publish to the web. Cool. And if anyone ever says, hey, I can't, you gave me the link and I don't see it, like it doesn't work, it asks for permission under share, you got to set it. It can't be private. It can't be restricted. It still has to be visible either to your domain, meaning Scarsdale Public Schools or Edgemont Public Schools, or one of those options is anyone with the link or anyone on the web.
I learned that the hard way back March. We published everything and nobody could open it. Like 20 emails come in. We can't open it.
Yeah, so that's the big thing, is always check the share settings with anything you're going to share, anything you're going to give out, like with those slideshows. Even if you're putting it on your website, make sure that share button, it's shared to your class or it's visible by anyone in Edgemont or Scarsdale Public Schools, or if it's for parents, make sure it's anyone on the web or anyone with a link, because you want those things to be visible. And honestly, like if it's stuff that you guys are putting on a website, like if you're making a slideshow that's going to be a resource for the kids, it's also really a resource for the parents. So I would make it visible to anyone. I wouldn't restrict it, because you know, grandma maybe helping them, or the nanny, or the baby, the tutor. Like, you never know, like, is
Yeah.
the student really logged into their device, or are they, you know, somewhere somebody else is trying to catch up or get a sense or whatever it is. Make it public, because odds are, if there's something that's specific to a child, you're just going to share that with them via Drive, and you'll literally manually share to that student if it's something you want them to, you know, fill out personal information on, or, you know, write a personal narrative or something. Like, you're giving that as an assignment, and like, that's where you're doing like Google Classroom, or just sharing to Drive. You're making something that you're going to put out there as a resource, as a check back this later, review this at home, things like that. I recommend making those things just public to anyone on the internet. And then that'll allow for, like I said, older siblings, tutors, nannies, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever, to access it, view it, and then support the student in whatever it is. You know, makes it just more accessible to everyone.
So just let me just clarify one thing now. We've been working on Google Slides, but what you just showed me to do is a Google website. Is that correct? Is that what you call it?
So what I showed you was how to embed a Google slideshow on a Google site.
Got it.
We spent a couple of minutes just getting you with you. I helped you get your own page on the Google site.
Right.
The reason for that is because then now you have a place where, if you wanted to share a bunch of these slideshows, like let's say with parents,
Yeah.
you don't have to give them 4 different links. You don't have to send an email with all these different links. You send an email with a link to your web page that has all of your Google Slides on it. And then that way you say, hey, listen, go to my site, you know. And like with mine, like with that Heathcote Gateway, what I've done is, and I'll show this to you guys again, because this is, you know, this is sort of why you use these types of things, or why you organize these types of things, is that, like, if I come over to, so I'm just gonna go to the home page. So this is like the home page, right? So I'll take this link, and yes, it's crazy and it's long, but you take this link and you put it into an email. And what you can do is, you know, you copy this, and just like with anything, and I'll even show you, like, you know, let's say it's over here. Like, let's say, I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom, like, click here for my website.
Mhm.
And this is what you would do on a document, in a Google slideshow, in an email, wherever. Then you would highlight it,
Insert link.
use the link button, and then paste and apply. And then essentially what would happen is, let's say you put that in your signature. When they click on that, they're going to get taken to the website. And you would give them some directions. So when I do this for parents, I say, listen, go to the gateway. I give them the link. You know, I might even say, oh, you're a 2nd grade parent who keeps asking me questions. I might actually just give them the link to the 2nd grade page.
Yep.
Because this is where I have these Google slideshows that are tutorials. And this way I don't have to send an email with a list of links to a Brain Pop one, to a whatever. I just have, this is one section that has my image with my text and my explanation, with sort of some helps of. It's a way to kind of combine resources and make it more efficient. So then they can scroll down, and I don't have to build something different for every single thing, or write a different email for every single thing. I literally just build these slideshows, update them as I need to. Now, the nice thing about this is, like,
Now that is a slideshow there. Then
it's
that
a
you
slideshow that I embedded.
Okay.
So if I need to make a change to it, I don't go to the website. I go back to the actual slideshow,
Yeah.
make the change on the slideshow, and it automatically updates.
Updates it. Yeah.
So, like, for instance, further down here, we're changing Zoom up, and we're changing Zoom. Thought I had Zoom on that one. We're changing it, how we log into Zoom. So I have this tutorial that I've made. So I'm going to go into this tutorial and tweak the photos and tweak the explanation of it. And I don't need to do anything else. It's already, then it's updated, and it's there, and it's active with the new instructions. So that's why making these slideshows are good, and then having a place to put them is beneficial, because whether it's your School Wires page, a Google site, something that's accessible, that's not just Google Classroom, because parents can't get into Google Classroom. right? Tutors, relatives, nannies, whatever,
Yeah.
they can't get in the Google Classroom unless they're sitting with a child. That's where you assign work. But if you're building things that are resources, that are, help files, that are catalogs of whatever, you want those things to be public and be publicly accessible so that they can be used as ongoing resources for whomever may need them. And that's where you would stick it on a, like I said, a SchoolWires page, a Google site, some form of public space. Cool. All right, now we'll start talking about the projects and what to do, because related to that is, what do you do if you have something you've made for this class and you want to keep it in the, you want to keep it as part of the project folder, but you also want to organize it and have it somewhere else. So there's two ways you can kind of have things in multiple places in Drive. The one way is sort of the obvious way, which is make a copy of it. Now you can make a copy of it. It then just doesn't, which is fine, right? You may say, and I do that tons of times, like I'll make a copy if it's something that year to year changes a little bit. I may make one sort of basic version and then make a copy of it with tweaks for 5th grade that are different than 4th grade, So I may have like 5 or 6 similar slideshows, but there's sort of the same basic content, but I have to make a copy because I have to customize one for kindergarten. I got to customize one for 2nd based on different devices or apps, let's say, right? So there's nothing wrong with making a copy. So, and there's a couple of ways to do that. So let me come in here real quick and just make sure everyone's good. So let's say I wanted this standard one. I wanted to make a copy. So I click on it. I can either do, there was 3 dots up in the top right, and I could do make a copy, or on a Mac, you can control click on it, make a copy. On a Chromebook, it's alt click. I think on a PC, it's control click. Now I make a copy. It's gonna just do its work. It's gonna put it right there, called copy of, right? Now I can control click on it again with the Mac, and what I can do is I can move to. So I can say, all right, I don't want this here. I want this to be, all the way back in my, I don't know, let's say my parent coffee one, right? I could move it to parent coffee if I wanted to. And I would just click move, and it would move it out of this folder into that other folder. Now, I'm not going to do that just because I don't want it moved. But just know that when you make this copy, if you make a change to this original one, it does not, those changes do not reflect in the other one. It's separate. Now that could be okay. Like for the sake of this class, you may say, you know what, I'm sort of good where I'm at for this class and I want to work on this separately. Then make a copy and put that copy in your curriculum folder or in your teaching folder, your lesson plan folder, and then start working off of that one. This, what you have in this folder as part of your project does not have to be an ongoing thing. It could be done as of today. And you're like, I like this, but I'm going to keep working on it and tweak it, make a copy, and then move that copy, control click, move it to wherever you need it to be in your lesson plan folder, your, like I said, curriculum folder, whatever it may be. So that's one option. And then I'm actually just going to delete this. Another option is, let's say you're working on something and you want to keep working on it. You want to keep it in here. Or maybe you're part of a team, right? You're co-teaching and you want to be able to have things in 2 places. You want to have things organized in your place, but you also want it organized and you want to have it accessible to somebody else somewhere else. What you can do is you can click on, like, let's say the comic. And if I click this, I can do Shift Z. And if I do Shift Z, the box looks similar to the move box, except it's not a move box. You can add a shortcut. So you can decide, and this one I'll actually do so you can see the difference. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to move this to my 2021 teaching folder, right? So right now there's not much in there. I'm going to add a shortcut there. So now what that means is this is the original file. It's there. I didn't make a copy, but now if I go into this new teaching folder, you're going to see right here, it's there, but it gives you this little icon. And what that's doing is it's showing you, it's going to, if I double click this, it's going to open up the actual file. It's going to open up the original. What it's doing is it's letting you know that that is a shortcut to somewhere else, that that original file lives somewhere else. But it's helpful. It could be helpful. And again, it's Shift Z if you want to put it, and I'll just go to something else. Let me come down. Oops. Like, let's say it's this one. Shift Z is what let you click on it first, do Shift Z, and then that's how you can add that shortcut. Still the same file. It just allows you to kind of have it visibly located in 2 different folders, 3 different folders. You can add as many shortcuts as you want. It's just, it all points to the same file. It's just about visually knowing that it's organized in certain places.
So, and since it's not a copy, then you don't have to go in and change who you're sharing it with. The same people will have
Correct.
access.
Correct. It's more about for your own sort of visual organization of being like,
Yeah.
I know I need this in my social studies folder, but this presentation is also really great for that ELA unit. Like, you don't need to make a copy of it. Just
Yeah.
click it, Shift Z, add a shortcut, and then also put it in the ELA folder. That way you're like, when your headspace is crowded, you're like, I forget, where's that? Oh no, yeah, here it is. There's the shortcut, right? That's that one I made in social studies originally that I'm also going to like repurpose or reuse again during the ELA unit, you know?
Now, can I do that with other stuff? Like I get slides shared with me from like special educators. This is, about this child, this is it.
Mhm.
And I always have to make a copy. Then if they change it, I don't have the changes.
No,
Can
you
I-
don't need to make a copy at all. You don't need to make a copy at all.
I
of
could do
those.
that Shift Z, even though
You
they're
don't
the
even need to.
owner.
You don't even need to. I'll show you.
Okay.
So if somebody makes a copy, or I'm sorry, somebody shares something with you. So that
Yeah.
thing that I actually use, that's actually Paul Tomazawa's.
Yes.
That's not mine. I don't own it.
Okay.
I put it.
can take theirs
I
and save it into my class. Like,
dragged it. I just dragged it from shared with me into my PD folder. It doesn't affect my organization of a file. So like shared with me is a giant bucket of everything that I've been given access to, right?
yeah.
So like, let's see, Jenna Volpe shared this 4th grade supply list with me. If I wanted to, all I have to do is I just click that little triangle just to open this up. And let's say I want this in my 2021-22 teaching folder. I just have to click it and I just drag it. And I drag it over to that 2021 teaching folder. And it says added shortcut.
So even though like a lot of this is view only, like I'm not allowed to change it. I don't own the document, but I do, it's stuff that's relevant to me. So I want it in like this year's class. I can
Yeah.
just make that shortcut. And then if they update it, I'll have the update
Totally. Yeah. It doesn't, you moving
in
it
that
around.
folder. Like in
Right.
other words,
Yeah, you moving it around, it doesn't affect their ownership. It doesn't, like, you don't know what folder they have it in because you don't see that. Like, they could have 15 files in that folder. They've only shared one with you. You have no idea what their organization is. All you know is that they shared something with you. You're just organizing your access to that thing based on your
that's
organization.
huge. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
so
gonna
you just put
so
that
much
wherever you,
time.
yeah, you just put that wherever you want. And it doesn't mess with them, and then, yeah, you don't need to make a copy. Now, another thing you can do, and this is a little bit tricky, but so basically, like, in terms of files, you have like make a copy, put one copy in one folder, one copy in the other, right? They're the twain no longer shall meet, or whatever. You might do that because, you're sort of done with one version of it and you're moving on to a different grade or content area, and you want to keep, like, let's say you have a really great 2nd grade reading unit slideshow, but next year you're moving to 5th. So you might make a copy of that 2nd grade reading slideshow, make a copy of it, rename it 5th grade, and make the appropriate tweaks. That way, if you ever go back to 2nd grade, you still have the 2nd grade one, but you taught 5th grade for a year. So now you're like, oh, cool, I've got my 5th grade one and my 2nd grade one. That's where a copy is helpful. If you're going to use that 2nd grade one, in, like I said, science and social studies, and you want to have it in both of those lesson plan folders, that's where you would do a shortcut. So that way in your headspace, you know that, oh, this file is useful for both science and social studies. That's why I have the shortcut. That's why it's in both places. Still the one file. So regardless of which one you click on, it opens up the same file, and it's the same file. It's just literally a visual indicator that you have located this file in multiple places. Sort of helps. Now, that's sort of in terms of this class, right? So if you have things that you want to keep working on and you're sort of done with this class, no problem. You can make a copy of it and then move that copy into your lesson plan folder and keep working. And whatever you've done for this class, you can just stop and cease as of today. That's fine. You want to do the shortcut thing? That's totally fine too.
Can I ask you another question? And I'm sorry, I know I keep
No
asking.
problem. That's fine.
If I, let's say I have that folder, it's called STI 5991. Can I just make a copy of the folder, or do I have to go in and do each slideshow?
So you can't make a copy of a folder.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you have to do sort of each one, which is
Okay.
the quick down and dirty way to do it is to, if you had a bunch of stuff, is to download the folder. Then once it downloads, then it's a zip file. You open up the zip file to see the folder, then you just drag that file back up to that folder back up. I can show you that in a minute. But I'll show you another trick that's just somewhat related to this. It's not related to sort of how you would like leave these things in the folder for the project, but just in terms of if you find yourself making slideshows that have like similar content in all of them. So like for instance, on mine, so on here, right, I have this section that talks about using Chrome incognito, right, and the people feature, right? I have all these things. Now I actually got to call it, I got to change it to be, profile feature. I use these same slides in like all of my presentations, right? Because it's important, whether it's for, YouTube or Google Drive or Gmail, whatever, it's an important resource. I don't necessarily want to keep remaking those. If you find yourself using a couple of slides in multiple presentations, the easy way to not drive yourself crazy is this. Let's say I take this one. This one, I got no speech bubble over here, right? I can copy this slide and I can paste this slide in a different presentation. When I do it, I'm going to get an option. It's going to ask me, do I want to match the style of this presentation? Meaning it would add the little, book in the corner. It would do those things. Keep the original, meaning it would just keep this original, whatever was on the original style in terms of font size and stuff. Or do I want a link? Now, if I do a link, what it's going to do is it puts this little icon up here. It's a link with an arrow. Because if I come back over here to now my comic book, and let's say I add a speech bubble to my third character, take my little gold dot, and I say, linked slides. I come back over here, you're going to notice this now says update, because it recognizes that this slide was taken from a different presentation and I made a change on it. I can click update and boom, that shows up. So essentially what I do is I have the one slideshow that has that sort of Google always use Chrome thing, and I just always make changes to that. Then anytime I go into an STI or a tutorial presentation, I'll see that little update button, and all I have to do is click update. And that way I don't have to worry about copying and pasting stuff over to every single presentation. Does that make sense, or did that just confuse everyone?
How did you copy that one slide and put it in another slideshow? I always have trouble with that.
I just, on the left-hand side of the slide sorter, I just clicked on one slide. So it's highlighted in yellow or gold. Command C to copy. Then I went to my other slideshow. I clicked the slide that I wanted mine to appear after. So you can click on the third slide and then Command V to paste. It'll make it the fourth slide. whatever, or you can go to the end and make it the end. But then if you want to, you can do that link. And then, because let's say you had, your classroom rules was a slideshow, and you always put your classroom rules at the start of every tutorial. You don't need to then copy paste, or edit all of them. You make your classroom rule slideshow. Anytime you make a change to it, it'll automatically recognize that on those other slideshows where those slides have been pasted, as long as you said link. Then you open up your, back to school file. You'll see update on whatever slides were linked. And then all you have to do is click update, and then it's there. If you don't see the update button, it means that the originals have not been changed and that slide shows up to date. It only goes that one direction. So if you have a classroom rules slideshow that's sort of your baseline that you've linked, you can't open up parent-teacher conferences, make a change to that slide, and have it revert back the other direction. Does that make sense? It only goes from like the original slideshow to the one you pasted to. That's the only direction that changes will be linked and synced. Does that make sense, Donna? And obviously everyone else. So that's just a handy little trick. Like I said, really is most useful if you find yourself like repeating the same slides across a number of presentations. You just basically start a slideshow that has like those core couple of slides of welcome to my class. Here's my contact information. Here's my whatever. You just make those, copy those, paste them into every other presentation you do. And then anytime you update those sort of baseline standard ones, those other presentations will automatically let you know that you need to update those slides. And then it's done. And then that way it's just the easy way to keep track. Cool. All right, so now in terms of how we're going to share these things. So what we're going to do is, so over here on the blog, there's this participants project document. I have now given you guys edit access. When you were to click on that, it would open up to be this. Let me get rid of that link I just made. It opens up to this file. Files about the course, gives you directions. So essentially you put your name in the name column. The project will be the link to that folder. So the way you do this, and I tell you who just to give access to, is let me come to that folder.
Is that going to be in, how do we access that, Chris?
So this is on the blog. And what I'll do is
when
I'll
you
toss
say the blog, I'm not sure I know how to get to your blog.
I'll put it. It was in the emails, the original emails. I put it in the chat a few times. I'll toss it into the chat again.
The chat again.
Mm-hmm. In just a second. Let me just.
I might have had it. I made it in class notes.
Yep.
Oh, I think I have it. Blog scarsdaleschool.org health. Okay.
Yep, I just put it in the chat again. So what you'll do is, let me get into that folder. So Google Slides. So I'm in this folder. This folder is your project, right? So you take this, you have this folder, I'm looking at it, after you've made your copies, moved stuff around, sort of got yourselves organized. Up here on the top, you have the folder name. Click the little down arrow. Share. Now, right now, and the reason why you're doing this is because if you just give me this link, I'm not going to be able to see the folder. You share it with, like, let's say Anne-Marie Nee and Fran, and then obviously you would share it with me. You don't need to notify people. So that basically means they're going to have access to it, but they're not going to get an email about it. And they don't need to be editors. They can just be viewers, or you can make them commenters if you felt like it. So then what you would do is, once you have Anne-Marie, Fran, and myself on here as either viewers or commenters, uncheck notify, just because for something like this, there's no need to notify them, because then it's out of context. What happens is they're actually shared on that project participants document. So you do share. So they now have access to it. So now I can go back to this little arrow up here and I can go to get link. And I just copy this link. And you notice it says restricted, only people you've added have access. So that's me, Fran, and Marie. So I'd copy this link, come over here, and I just paste it. And everyone always freaks out that it's not an actual link. All you gotta do is press the space bar and then it becomes a link.
So this page here that you want to put us to put it in is
Mhm.
on your blog?
It's under project participants, participant projects. And if you click it, I gave you access. I just didn't notify you had access. So if you
Okay.
click it, it'll open. And then what you do is under notes, instead of stuff I've done, you can explain, I dabbled in all of these things and there's a bunch of mess in there, but it's cool because I kind of have better focus. Or there's a couple of things in there, but really I focused on the comic book, and my comic book is like crazy detailed, and that's where I kind of put my focus, you know.
So I see like where you did it there, you copied that link and you
Mhm.
put the link in there,
Mhm.
but that's a link to one slide. That's not to the
Nope,
folder, right?
Nope, that's a link to the whole folder. When you're in Drive over here, I'm up
Yeah.
at the top of the folder. So this is my summer 2021. This is the name of that folder. I went to the down arrow right here. I went to share and I added the people, right? I went to share.
Yeah.
I added Fran and Marie. I clicked, let me just, I don't know, we'll do Jerry. I unchecked notify people, right? And I made, let's say I was going to make Jerry a viewer. I unchecked notify people. I changed it from editor to whatever. And then I would click share. I'm going to cancel that because I don't need it. Then I came back up here and I got the link. This link is to the whole folder. So they have access then to everything inside of the folder.
Okay.
So then I got the link and I copy, you do get link. It's going to let you know that it's only shared with certain people, which is basically going to be me, Fran, and Anne Marie. Copy the link, come over here, paste it in, press the space bar afterwards to actually make it a link. And the notes is just a brief explanation of like, I dabbled in a bunch of different things. There's a whole bunch of hot messes in there, but the one I really focused on was the Ignite, or this whole folder's a hot mess, but it's helped me figure out what I'm going to do. And now that this class is over, I'm going to make a copy of my comic book and I'm going to really work on that and build that up. And that's going to be the thing I use for September, my September unit.
So we pick the people and we're going to share it with, we change it to viewer, we unclick notify people.
Mhm.
And then when we click share, do we have to go in and
then you go back to
the link?
Then you go, so you click share, the box disappears, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't click it. I was afraid to.
Click share, share. The box disappears.
Yeah, well, share anyway. It's, I'm sharing with people out of my school.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So the box disappears.
Yeah.
Then go back up to the top where you just were, click the drop down and do get link.
Okay.
And then on the bottom right, it'll say copy link.
And it says only people added can open this link. So that I did that already.
Yep, and that's what you just did. You added me, Fran, and Marie. Then you copy the link. Then you go to that document and you drop that link into the document.
Okay. All right, I think I did it.
Cool. And then that way, yep, you did it. And then the way you make it a blue link is at the end, you just press the space bar and it'll make it. The reason why it doesn't make it a blue actual clickable link right away is because in theory, Google's not sure if you're going to add text to the address. So once you either press the space bar or press return, it knows that that's a complete link and then it makes it, or it knows it's a complete URL and then it makes that URL clickable. And that's why it does that.
All right.
And then, like I said, the notes is just sort of an explanation as to kind of what's in there. And it's fine if it's like, this folder is a hot mess, but it's helped me figure out what to do. And I'm going to start focusing on X, Y, or Z for the school year. Or, most of the things are a hot mess except for my graphic novel, which is really great. Or, you know, I got a bunch of stuff in there. What I really worked on was my, you know, cleaning up my open house thing. So this is like the version that's in there. That's the most that I dove the most deep on, is cleaning up all the text and bullets and simplifying my bullet points. And, you know, because one thing, you know, we didn't really review today, but we've talked about is like, you know, bullet points should be statements, you know, they're not full sentences. They're not periods. They're not like, you want to write full statements, you're writing sentences. Bullet points are 2-3 words, you know, they're super straight to the point facts, like, and that, you know, and maybe what you've put in there is how you've refined your bullet points to make them less about sentences and more about sort of staccato writing. You know, you want to speak in sentences, speak in sentences. You want people to read in sentences, have them read a paragraph. Bullet points are this. They're, you know, sort of very staccato points, you know, because it's all about efficiency, you know, and being clear and concise, but really about the efficiency of language and the efficiency of text, so that your audience is focusing on the meaning and the understanding of it without having to try to parse words and sort of understand and get used to your style of writing. Because again, presentations are really about the audience. You know, it's not about what you think looks cool. It's about how is the audience going to engage with it and how are they going to react or what are they going to take from it. You know, like I always say at Heathcote, no rainbows, unicorns, or fireworks, because that stuff's just distracting to the audience. You know, the kids always hate it because they're like, "You're no fun, Mr. Cassell." I'm like, right, you may want to have an animation, but your audience doesn't want you to have an animation, because it's not about you. It's about your audience. It's about how is your audience going to engage with this? What are they going to take from it? And it's sort of, that's what becomes making a good presentation is, and that's why I like Ignites, because it helps to kind of focus it. But even if you're doing a graphic novel or a comic book, it's still thinking about, it's not about you and what you want. It's about how are you getting the point of your story, of your narrative across to your viewer, your reader, your audience in the most clean, clear, concise way, where they're going to take out of it what you sort of hope that they get out of it. And they're not trying to like navigate your wacky design style, or they're not trying to like mentally manage your crazy font choices, or they're not trying to, you know, sort of read through the chaos of your colors and stuff like that. You know, simple, clean, because it's about the audience and, you know, them learning from you or taking something from you. Cool. Any other questions? Well, so that's all I have at this point. I'm happy to stick around, take a look at things, give feedback on any stuff, help people troubleshoot copying, moving things around folders. So feel free to drop off if you're good and done. Feel free to stick around if you have questions, and happy to get to that. Cool.
I do have one question.
Yeah, go for it.
When I'm trying to do some of this on my own, I might forget it. You did videotape all of these, and you said that you had a document. I think I might have copied it and put it in my notes.
So on the blog post,
Yeah.
or that blog post where you went and you got the participant projects,
Yeah.
directly below participant projects is the slideshow for this class that has resources and links and stuff in it. And then if you scroll down below that, you'll see the replays of all the different sessions.
Okay,
so
great.
that you can watch the replays. So all of that, everything is standardized on that blog post.
Great. Thank you so much. This was really great. It was a lot of information, and I'm sure I'll forget it and I'll have to refer back to this, but
Totally.
It was a lot. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, that blog post is there. You have the link to it, and that's, you know, that's why that's up there, is so that way you can always kind of check back in with it. You can rewatch the videos. You can look at that slideshow that kind of has a little bit of the stuff. I'll make sure that I have a link to, you know, the Ignite script in there. I'll make sure I have a link to that capstone project guidelines document where it talks about sort of consistency is key. you know, with any presentation about just being sort of standard and baseline. So as again, not to confuse your audience, you know, and things like that. So all that stuff will be in that slideshow that's on the blog.
Great. Thank you so much.
No doubt.
Thank you. Keep working on
Thank
everything.
you.
Yeah, no doubt.
Bye.
I'll see you soon.
Yep, definitely. Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.